Hey, good afternoon to you. 5:07 now. News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. You can join us today, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. A huge election this week. Huge. A big victory for President Trump and all the people who support him, the people who are done with the nut jobs, who want normalcy to return to America. And, of course, there are some losers this week, Kamala Harris, but not just her. There are so many others. Here to discuss all of it, Bobby Burack is joining us. He's a columnist at OutKick, one of my favorites, and so glad to have him back on the air. Bobby, good to talk to you today, sir.
Vince, good week, good time to chat.
Yeah, it's wild. So you've written on this subject this week, on the winners and losers of the week, so I'd love to just go down the list with you. Obviously, we have President Trump as a winner, Kamala Harris as a loser. But you say first and foremost, the legacy media should immediately go to the top of the loser category. Why?
The legacy media threw everything it had. They exhausted every measure they had at their disposal to influence this election and stop Donald Trump. Hoax after hoax, lie after lie, spin job after spin job. Just in the past 3 weeks, whether it be the Liz Cheney lie, amplifying the Puerto Rican joke, completely ignoring all Kamala Harris' many flaws, they tried everything. Ever since JFK faced Richard Nixon, the media has been overwhelmingly a left-wing ally. But it's never been quite this aggressive. Ever. It was really a sight to behold, the extent to which they wanted to stop Donald Trump. So if they can't do it now, using every resource they have, it's not going to get any better. ABC, CNN, those networks aren't going to gain more viewers. They're just going to continue to lose viewers. The Joe Rogans, the Theo Vons, they're only going to continue to rise. So it's going to get worse for them.
Are you seeing any sort of self-reflection, anything going on in the media that gives you cause for hope, or are they just going to stay the course?
No, I'm reading right now that a woman on CNN today by the name of Laura Barron Lopez said the problem is that there is not a left-wing media ecosystem, that the media is dominated by right-wing propaganda.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, great. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
That's really okay. So no. So the answer to that is no. There's no self-reflection going on.
No.
We're just going to stick with lying. Let's see if that works.
Yeah.
Okay. So the legacy media, full of losers, and is dying a well-deserved death. You just mentioned. I'll jump to one of the winners you just mentioned, which is podcasters. Tell me about the kind of the podcast independent media environment and what you see for the future of that.
Donald Trump made gains with several demographics compared to 4 years ago, but the biggest one that I've seen is young voters. He's plus 10 from 4 years ago. And Dana White, during Trump's acceptance or victory speech, rather, pointed them out, the Nelk boys, Theo Von, Bussing with the Boys, Joe Rogan. And there was actually a pretty honest profile by Time magazine detailing that this was a big strategy for the Trump campaign. They wanted to reach young men, and in August, Trump told a few of his advisors, ask Barron. When Barron approves, I'll go on. And it sounds like Barron was the one who told his dad and his dad's team which podcast to appear on. And that was huge because young men, they're not watching Jake Tapper. They're not listening to Don Lemon or Brian Stelter or Rachel Maddow or, quite frankly, even Fox News or radio. To be honest, they are watching YouTube. They are streaming podcasts. And they didn't care about the lies told by the media because they didn't see it. They didn't hear what Joy Reid was saying at 7 p.m. They were listening to Donald Trump themselves with Theo Von, with Joe Rogan, with the Nelk boys. And apparently they liked what they heard.
Yeah, that's for sure. I think, one of the things that stands out to me is that there are people on the right who are capable of doing these long-form podcasts who can go in there and actually talk about ideas and be relatable and convince people to support them. But the left lacks anybody really like that. There are very few people who exist on the left who are even capable of that. In fact, that's just not just my opinion. Those former Obama aides who run a podcast of their own called Pod Save America, they were saying this week that they can count on just one hand the number of Democrats who are capable of doing what Donald Trump and J.D. Vance did, which is sit for 3-hour-long interviews and actually come across as relatable and have conversations that seem natural.
Yeah, and what's encouraging is that podcast is a way for the right to counter the mainstream bias going forward, because the Republicans and the conservatives were never going to have an advantage in TV news or print. They used to only be able to counter it via radio, whether it be Rush Limbaugh, Mark Levin, yourself, Clay and Buck. But for younger people, it is crucial to also reach them online, the ones that don't drive around, the ones that don't have cable, but they just have an apartment and they go on YouTube and Rumble. This is a huge advantage for conservatives. And I think the left is panicking because of that.
Yeah.
But what I find amusing, those names we just mentioned, those aren't right-wing coups. Joe Rogan has never voted Republican until this election. I never really considered Theo Vaughn to be a right-wing ideologue. A lot of these podcasters are just normal people who believe in common sense, and the Democratic Party has pivoted so far away from common sense that we now consider Joe Rogan to be a Republican, and he's really not.
Yeah, it is amazing, really amazing. Okay, so also, by the way, I should plug the fact we have a podcast. This show becomes a podcast at the conclusion of the show. You can listen to all of the interviews, including the one you're listening to right now, in podcast form. Please subscribe to it. And if you like YouTube, you can do it there too. We've got them all up on YouTube. Hey, speaking of the way that people get these messages, Bobby Burack, one of the huge winners of this election on your list and definitely on mine, Elon Musk. Elon Musk really he gambled big time in this election. Tell me about Elon Musk and what you think of him.
The left had a monopoly on social media for every election until this one. And we've detailed pretty extensively what happened in 2020 when you had members of Biden's campaign reaching out to tech leaders and asking them to suppress content, which, as far as I'm concerned, is a violation of the Constitution, because at that point, these companies are acting like state actors. But that monopoly was undone by Elon when he bought Twitter. X was just a game changer because it allowed ordinary Americans to fact check the fact checkers. It allowed right-leaning or independent journalists to debunk the media propaganda. And there was so much media propaganda following the first assassination attempt on Donald Trump. The only people asking real questions were on X. And that was huge. It opened eyes to so many people because they were allowed to give a counter perspective. Does Donald Trump win if Elon doesn't own X, and that we are still under old management where they suppress you and censor you and kick you off for having the wrong opinions? Then I don't know if he still wins. Maybe he does, but it would have been a lot more challenging. Tuesday night, or Wednesday morning rather, really showed the power of Elon Musk restoring free speech on the internet.
The community notes feature alone, where you democratized fact-checking, you allow normal people to say, that's not true, here's the context that they're leaving out. That is revolutionary. That's game-changing.
Yes.
Because what you have now is an actual robust conversation where you allow facts to enter the conversation instead of the censorship regime locking down the ability of people to even know what's going on and, of course, by extension, controlling their minds.
Well, I'll tell you one that stands out to me is the border czar. There were so many mainstream outlets that said, no, Kamala Harris was not the border bazaar. And then Community Note said, wait a minute, no, Axios, Politico, Slate, you referred to her as the border czar. And that was huge for Donald Trump because immigration was such a critical point of him winning this election. And without X, those outlets would still be claiming that she was not the border czar.
I hate to laugh at what you just said, but you just described her as the border Caesar, the border bazaar, the border czar, and then the border Caesar, and I was chuckling throughout all of it. I loved it. Thank you for that. All right, let's see. What else do we have? We've got, okay, so legacy media, loser, winner, Elon Musk, loser. Oh, this is a good one. Hollywood.
Yeah.
Can we put to bed the idea that Hollywood wields influence over anybody?
Yeah, it's done, right? Like I saw people say, well, Taylor Swift endorsed her. It's over for Republicans. Didn't matter at all. I put the list in there of all the Hollywood elites that endorsed Kamala. It meant absolutely nothing. The Hollywood endorsement is over.
Thank goodness. I mean, it is. I mean, not that it really held much sway in the first place, but they were also very impressed. And it was funny. Who was complaining this week? Joy Reid was complaining. Do I have that audio? Is that in yesterday's cut sheet? Let me just pull it up. You'll love this. This is really funny. So Joy Reid was complaining this week that even Mary who was it? The Beehive. I'm sorry. I'm so taken by this piece of audio that I just have to find it. Here it is. Here's Joy Reid complaining that the Queen Latifah endorsement didn't push Kamala Harris over the top.
And I think it's important to say that, anyone who has experienced or been in the United States for any period of time and experienced this country's history and knows it cannot have believed that it would be easy to elect a woman president, let alone a woman of color. Let's just be clear. And nothing that was true yesterday about how flawlessly this campaign was run is not true now.
It was perfect.
I mean, this really was an historic, flawlessly run campaign.
Flawless.
Queen Latifah never endorses anyone. She came out and endorsed. She had every prominent celebrity voice. She had the Taylor Swiftie to the Swifties. She had the Beehive. Like, you could not have run a better campaign in that short period of time. And I think that's still true.
Everything about that was nonsense. But I just love that she's like, even Queen Latifah endorsed, and she never does that. And as if that means something to the rest of us.
Yeah, I'm working on a column right now about how Donald Trump broke the machine, how this entire power apparatus had all these advantages for Kamala Harris, and none of it mattered. There's no coming back from that. Hollywood's not going to regain this power. The media is not going to regain trust unless everyone's fired and they find new, honest, credible voices. This is devastating for the Democratic Party. Not to mention, there's a real chance, Vince, that in upcoming presidential elections, the census is going to reorganize the electoral map by some and give more votes to Florida, which would make it where that blue wall is no longer a clincher for Democrats.
Yeah. No, there's so many good things ahead. I pray for anyway, and I'm glad so much of the nonsense is falling by the wayside. Thank you for observing it and sharing your thoughts today, Bobby Burack. Great to talk to you today. A few days ago on MSNBC, Michael Cohen, remember him, was on TV, and they were speculating what would happen if Trump wins. This was before Trump actually won. And Nicole Wallace asked Cohen, what are you going to do if Trump wins? Listen to the answer he gave. Check this out.
What do you think happens to you if he wins?
Well, I'm out of here. I mean, I'm already working on a foreign passport with a completely different name. I don't know how it's going to work as far as dealing with my wife and my children. I certainly don't want them moving to where I'm looking to go. But I don't think yourself, the president of MSNBC, General Milley, Liz Cheney, how many people has he turned around and said that these are people that I intend to go after if I have the ability to? And the worst is the Supreme Court's recent decision that gave him immunity, presidential immunity. Now he thinks it's not only is it I can do whatever I want, but I can't even be prosecuted. It's a get out of jail free card solely for the president.
So you're out of here. You'd leave the country.
I have no choice.
I have no choice.
State of being. Michael Cohen.
I'll still be available to you, but by remote.
Right, by encrypted remote. Thank you for spending time with us today.
It's always good to see you.
And she acts like he's not insane. They both sit around, they nod. This is so crazy. So I was wondering, I went online, I said, where's Michael Cohen? And nothing. So here's what we know at this moment. He's probably on the lam. He fled the country with a fake name and a bogus passport. He's got a bag full of cash. He's on the run, baby. And nobody's chasing him. That's the so we'll update the Michael Cohen saga. Where in the world is Michael Cohen? We'll keep track of that. That's a story I can't wait to get an update on. Michael Cohen. And he's gonna pop up on some television screen somewhere. He'll be in the middle of Kiev or whatever. And he'll have like glasses on and a fake mustache. Hey, there's Michael Cohen. I'm on the move again. Man. All right. Coming up, we'll take your calls. We'll get your reaction to all of the hilariousness of the week. Also, the left claims it's taking an inventory right now of what the heck happened, how they can fix things for the future. And apparently the answer is you're just too racist. That's what they've come up with. The brain trust of the Democrat Party. What happened? Well, it's the voters. You see, the voters are the problem. Yeah, the great lovers of democracy, the Democrat Party. A lot to share with you. And your calls, 888-630-9625. Hey, good afternoon to you. It's 5:35 here at News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. You can join us today, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Yeah, good news this hour. Dave McCormick seals the deal in Pennsylvania. That puts the Senate with 53 Republican votes. Not bad. It's a start. You want to be in the majority. And the House looks destined for Republican control as well. So that's the good news this hour. We've got a lot in front of us today. I want to get to some of this audio as the left is undergoing the shallowest round of soul searching you've ever seen. And they've concluded that you're the problem. What's the problem? It's the voters. The voters are the problem. Let's take Charlie now, calling from Hanover, Pennsylvania, one of the commonwealths that delivered the country a very good news. Charlie on line 8. Good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show. Hello, Charlie.
Hey, Vince. Good to talk with you. And that's really great news that Dave McCormick pulled the victory over Mr. Casey.
Yes.
So really happy to hear that.
Yeah, it's great.
But one of the things I was just thinking as I'm driving home, that, President Obama, he kind of pushed the envelope on the immigration issue. And, we had the folks coming across the border, but some of the people on the left now, they just didn't know when to quit. And it wasn't just the immigration issue. It was, guys competing against girls and a whole lot of crazy stuff. And I think people just got to the point where the average normal person just kind of said, we've had enough of this, and we're just not going to continue to go down this path.
Yeah, that's right. Normal people rose up, I think, and said, we're done with this garbage because we were tired of being led by nut jobs. And I will say that Obama seems to be the through line here, Charlie. I mean, you're right. Obama was enabling and encouraging illegal migration into the United States. He was passing policies that were designed to forgive breaking our laws in order to encourage more people to do it. And all of the pieces that exist right now in the Biden administration, they're there because of Obama. This is Obama's never-ending term. It just keeps going and going and going. And the one thing that's going to really help the country out a lot is figuring out a way to purge Obama entirely from our politics, because that guy has really done so much damage to our country.
Exactly. I mean, we had the Dreamers, and that went on for a long time. And, people tend to overlook things because it's not affecting them directly. But then we got to the point where we're having thousands and thousands coming across the border every day illegally.
Yes.
And the impact of that's just been what most people are willing to tolerate.
Yeah, no, it's a big deal. And I remember back to when Obama came out to the Rose Garden and he made the announcement that he was going to start allowing illegals to stay in the country and DACA and all this stuff. And I had a colleague there at the time, Daily Caller White House correspondent Neil Monroe. This is many years ago now, and as Obama was speaking, he threw a question out in the middle of the statement where he said, "We're going to allow all these illegals to stay in the country," and he said, "Why are you favoring foreigners over American workers?" That was the question. I think I'm saying it verbatim. Why are you favoring foreigners over American workers? He asked. And I should point out, Neil Monroe is an Irish immigrant to the United States with a thick Irish accent, asking, why are you favoring foreigners over American workers? And Obama became indignant. He became angry at Neil. Next time, let me finish speaking before you ask your question. He started screaming at him. And then the press, they didn't take Neil's side. They didn't take the side of the American worker. They chased Neil Monroe across Washington, D.C. as he went back to our office at the Daily Caller at the time at the corner of 17th and K. They chased him all the way back to the office. Who are you? What do you think you're doing? Why are you heckling the president? Neil Monroe was a hero for asking that question. He was the only one in the press corps, and the press corps turned against him, Charlie. And so that brings us to today, where all of that craziness was advanced by Obama world and enabled by the very same media who turn their weapons against the people who stood up for Americans.
Well, I thought your previous guest you had on that was talking about the technology that's being used now, the podcasts, Joe Rogan, and President Trump asking Barron, who he should be listening or who the president should be talking to as far as podcasters. And I thought that was really tremendous.
That's great. Barron turned out to be a hell of an advisor, it turns out. What a great move, and it went very well.
And I saw a picture I didn't realize how tall Barron was until I saw him standing next to Melania and President Trump in that picture.
I know.
And I thought, oh my goodness, this kid is big.
Yeah, they need to stop feeding him. He's getting huge. It's too much. It's funny. How tall is President Trump? 6'4"? Is that? He's 6'3". 6'3". Corey tells me he tracks this stuff. Corey knows everybody's height. He can see them. He's like going to the carnival. You ask him, like, what's the height? And he's like 6'3". Knows it right on the nose. 210 pounds. He knows he's got it perfectly. President Trump 6'3". Just look at Barron. Barron looks like he's another 4 inches taller than him at least. He's huge.
Exactly. Well, I was talking with a repairman yesterday, an HVAC guy.
Yeah.
And I said, I can remember back in 1980 when I voted for Ronald Reagan, and he defeated Jimmy Carter. I remember driving to work the next day, and it was like a load was lifted off my shoulders. It was just a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
And that's all I can say about this election. It's a breath of fresh air, and hopefully we'll be able to continue this for the next 4 years and beyond.
I agree. Yeah, it was a relief. I will say, Charlie, and I really appreciate this call. I feel the same way you did, but I realized I took an inventory of my emotions from 2016 where I was elated. That was a party. 2016. He beat Hillary Clinton. Yes. And then this time I was way more subdued. I was thrilled, but I was relieved. It was like an exhausted form of relieved. And I don't know if other people have that same feeling, but this one for me was, oh, thank goodness. Oh, thank goodness. And I feel a great sense of relief. Charlie, thank you very much for the call from Pennsylvania and from undoubtedly 2 of those votes to help push both President Trump and Dave McCormick over the finish line. Thank you, Charlie.
Okay, good to talk to you, Ben.
That's Charlie calling in from Pennsylvania. Appreciate that. Oh man, we're gonna do. Some of the focus of the program here in the weeks ahead, especially as we arrive at an incoming Trump administration, is going to be on help is on the way. Help is on the way. We've got a lot of really good people on the way, And I don't know about you, but do you try and read through like who's advising Trump right now, who's even considering hiring, and I'm seeing names pop up all over the place. Apparently, Susie Wiles, who just ran a very successful Trump campaign alongside Chris LaSavita, there's some news today that she's apparently in the running to become the chief of staff of the White House. If her success as a campaign manager is any indicator, she may be a very, very talented chief of staff. This is a woman who I don't know, I've never met, but I'm very impressed by from a distance, and that could be very good. So maybe she could be a chief of staff. We'll see about that. I saw Mike Davis today. He's really pushing for. He's a great guy. He'll be around Trump. He's a loyalist. He's a fighter. He's pushing for our buddy Mark Paoletta to become attorney general. Really talented lawyer. That guy could be really, really good in that role. That's pretty neat. I saw Politico reported that in the day after, that would be yesterday, the day after the election, down in Mar-a-Lago, apparently Tucker Carlson and Elon Musk were still hanging out. They must have stayed at Mar-a-Lago for the night, hanging out with President Trump, talking to him. And my guess is the conversation is what comes next. How do we set up an administration? Those are the kinds of people you want around. J.D. Vance as vice president of the United States? This is exactly the direction you want started, right? Rick Grinnell, that guy's going to be a part of things. Look at what a great fighter he's been. Maybe Secretary of State? Look, I'm just throwing things out there. There's a lot of people who are better, smarter than I am, better connected, have a better sense of who's right for what jobs. It's just you start thinking, okay, this could be a group of people who really do good things for the country. I love that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is involved. I love it. He is fighting corruption. That's what we want to fight. We want to untangle the corruption from our government and, in fact, decrease the role that the government plays in all of our lives. Here's RFK yesterday. He was talking to, I think this is MSNBC. Yeah, MSNBC. Now, pay attention to what happens with RFK's coverage over the next few weeks. The legacy media is going to use him as their ultimate foil. They're going to say stuff like, this guy's crazy, he's insane, he's going to change. They're so angry on behalf of their pharmaceutical company backers, their food industry backers. They're part of a corrupt scheme. So that corruption is going to enable the kind of vile coverage you see of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. in the weeks ahead. Mark my words. And here he is yesterday talking to MSNBC.
Clearing out the corruption in your terms, would that mean clearing out the top-level federal service workers that are currently at the FDA and the CDC?
In some categories, I would say.
What does that look like? Yeah.
In some categories of workers, there are entire departments, like the nutrition departments at FDA, that have to go. That are not doing their job. They're not protecting our kids. Why do we have Fruit Loops in this country that have 18 or 19 ingredients, and you go to Canada and it's got 2 or 3?
Would you eliminate any of the agencies?
To eliminate the agencies, as long as it requires congressional approval, I wouldn't be doing that. I can get the corruption out of the agencies. This is what I've been doing for 40 years. I've sued all those agencies. I have a PhD in corporate corruption, and that's what I do. And once they're not corrupt, once Americans are getting good science and are allowed to make their own choices, they're going to get a lot healthier.
That's fantastic, and that's what you want. That's what you want, and he's in a good position to affect change. And by the way, just a last person I want to mention, then I have some breaking news to share with you now. Elon Musk. How could I not place him somewhere near the top of the list? As he undertakes an effort to enhance the efficiency of government, the Department of Government Efficiency. That's the joking name they've referred to it as. We'll see what that looks like, what actual position, if any. Boy, I think we've got some good things coming. At least I'm praying for that. Now, here's the breaking news. I mentioned the chief of staff position. It is now settled, literally in the last minute. President Trump has just released a statement announcing that Susie Wiles will be the White House chief of staff. In fact, here's the announcement from the Trump-Vance transition team. The 45th and 47th President of the United States of America, Donald J. Trump, announced today, I love that, that's the preamble on this, announced today that Susan Summerall Wiles, I didn't know her middle name was Summerall, but there it is, the winning campaign manager for President Trump's highly successful 2024 campaign for president, will be named President Trump's White House chief of staff. Quote, Susie Wiles just helped me achieve one of the greatest political victories in American history and was an integral part of both my 2016 and 2020 successful campaigns, President Trump said. Quote, Susie is tough, smart, innovative, and is universally admired and respected. Susie will continue to work tirelessly to make America great again. It's a well-deserved honor to have Susie as the first ever female chief of staff in United States history. Well, how about that? Do you think the media is going to cover that and with the aggression that they would if it were Joe Biden or Kamala Harris doing the same thing? No. I have no doubt, President Trump continues, that she will make our country proud. So if you were happy with how the campaign went, perhaps you'll be happy with how the White House is run. President Trump has tapped Susie Wiles to be his chief of staff. She has agreed to do that. That's a great piece of news here. Let's see. Sam is calling in from Alexandria, line 3. Sam, good afternoon, sir. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, brother. Thank you so much for taking my call. And, man, yesterday was euphoric. I just couldn't believe it. Or, I'm sorry, Wednesday. Yeah, yesterday.
Yeah. I know. You know what? The lack of sleep 2 nights ago has really thrown most of us off. But, yes, you're right. It was yesterday.
Yeah. And I'm so glad to hear that he has put an unintelligent woman around him that ran the most successful campaign in history. Imagine that.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. Try that out, Mark Cuban. Anyhow, that being said, one of the things, and I think I'm hoping that we'll be heading in the right direction, and it's kind of a two-pronged thing, is that we think strategically and we focus 8 to 12 years out as to what we need to do to, and dare I say, select and groom future candidates that reflect the principles of what I think the new evolution of the Republican Party is.
Oh, definitely.
So we can look and say, we know J.D. Vance, who everybody's been impressed with, is easily going to be a great president in 4 years and then 8 years. And who should he pick as his VP as he goes in?
Yeah.
And we really need to think about who that should be. And I hate to say the identity politics, but I sure would love to be the first one to have the Iron Lady as the president in 12 years.
Yeah, perhaps. But you know something? One of the things about J.D. Vance's inclusion as a running mate is it sort of broke a lot of the preconceived notions about what it's supposed to be. Yes, he comes from an important state, but J.D. Vance's importance to the ticket was his ability to be yet another communicator who can reach the American people and had some sense of what they even care about. And so that's actually the lesson from this, which is let's stop trying to look on the card and figure out, okay, who checks off all of these boxes. That's not what you're looking for. You're looking for somebody who actually gives a crap about the American people, can speak to the issues that they actually care about, and will address them head on in terms of how you're going to fix them. And so JD was perfect in that way. He was a great surrogate during the campaign. I think he's going to be a great vice president. I hope that President Trump and J.D. Vance have a very productive relationship. Oftentimes vice presidents are kind of cast to the side and they kind of do the ceremonial stuff. I really hope that he has a role in policy, that he has a role in terms of just being able to be an extension of President Trump's ability to help run this government. And then in 4 years, that he's able to have a full head of steam. And here's the encouraging thing. If you like watching President Trump campaign, remember, this may not actually be the last time you see him on the campaign trail. In 4 years, if J.D. Vance is the nominee, President Trump may end up being one of his biggest and most important surrogates on the campaign trail. You could once again be thrilled by a Trump campaign. So this is things are shaping up. But I guess I should point out, Sam, one step at a time. We're not even to the inauguration yet, but there's a lot of cause for excitement.
Yeah, but I've got to always – it's that Army thing, and you can blame the Schlickmeister on that as well because he is being an Army comrade with the tall armor boots. The other aspect of this is now is the time that we start looking inward and look at the Republican Party.
For sure.
And dare I say, look at the dinosaurs that need to graciously and diplomatically and lovingly be shown the door in no uncertain terms and say, hey, look, you've had a great career. But here's the way we're heading. This is the direction we're heading, and we have to shake loose the bonds of the corporate look. Because my daddy was raised in Mississippi, in the 30s and 40s, worked on a farm, and his whole life grew up Democrat.
Yeah.
And died Democrat because the Republicans are for the big guys. Therefore, the corporations.
No, you're right. You're right.
Down.
We need to eject these guys, and you're right. It shouldn't be nicely, though. We should grab them by the back of their belt and the nape of their neck and throw them right out the door. Thank you, Sam. I appreciate the call. It's fine. Okay, when I read the name Susie Wiles off of President Trump's statement, I thought to myself, the only Summerall I know is Pat Summerall. Did you know Pat Summerall is her father? Wow, the things you learn. Stay with us here on WMAL, the great one, Mark Levin, up next.